There is no way that Prince Harry should be appearing on that balcony. Do you hear me? For the Jubilee. No way. He is a danger. He doesn't deserve to be around them. In private, yeah, they can do what they want, but not as a public member of the royal family. My dears, you're going to have to bear with me this morning. I'm in a blind fury, and I don't know where this is going to go, but I'm going to be ranting and raving, so if you don't like that, go, whatever. That's how it's going to be. I barely know where to start, and before you tell me to calm down, this is therapeutic for me, okay? So I enjoy getting it out my system and sharing it with you fruits that understand, my dear. But, you try and give these people the benefit of the doubt, don't you? And behave regally. Only to have it chucked back in your face. So I'm recording this in the morning. Prince Harry's full interview with, what's his poxy channel, NBC, today has not emerged yet. It will do soon. But they have revealed an excerpt from this interview, and I'm sure you've heard, where Prince Harry made a little aside. People said it was off the cuff, a little harmless remark. But of course, it's blown up and hit the headlines. Because let's not forget, Prince Harry is hyper aware of the media. This was not an off-the-cuff remark that didn't mean anything. That was the line that he wanted to emerge from his interview with NBC today. I'll try and put in a little clip of this footage. And I want to tell you, dears, coming up, I'm going to be announcing my feelings on Prince Charles becoming Prince Regent. This is just how I feel today. As I've always said, my thoughts and opinions continually change because I'm informed with different facts every day and different ideas. I just want to share it's like a thought shower that I want to share with you today. I might feel completely and utterly differently tomorrow. But I know some of you appreciate me coming to you with my emotions as it happens. And, I've got some quite controversial feelings today on the subject of Charles becoming Prince Regent, which I never ever would have even tolerated in my mind 5 or 6 months ago. The very idea of it, not at all. But things have changed. Prince Harry was asked on this interview that I think was recorded during Invictus. He was asked about when he saw the Queen, when he went to tea with Her Majesty.
Being with her, it was great. It was just so nice to see her. She's on great form. She's always got a great sense of humour with me, and I'm just making sure that she's, protected and got the right people around.
Well, you make her laugh. That's what she always says.
Both Meghan and I had tea with her, so it was really nice to catch up with her.
Got a great sense of humour with me. Oh, chuckle, chuckle, chuckle. Yes, you damaged my entire legacy, but chuckle, chuckle, chuckle. And I'm just making sure that she's protected and got the right people around her. That was the bomb. Both Meghan and I had tea with her, so it was really nice to catch up with her. Oh, catch up. So he did. So, and did you notice? I did. After he did this interview, he gave... sometimes you'll see in his countenance, his expressions, you'll see flashes of Charles, despite the rumours about James Hewitt. I see Charles all the time, and the Duke of Edinburgh. And sometimes you'll see flashes of Diana. And right at the end, you saw that little... that Diana used to do on his face.
Got the right people around.
Well,
usually when she felt a little bit guilty or when she was relishing a certain situation that was naughty, when she was up to mischief. There it was, echoes of Diana, and we loved Diana. Most of us adored the girl, but we all know that she had a little bit of the mischief in her sometimes, and Harry certainly inherited that. Remember, it was Diana that said, Harry's an airhead, like me. And there was much about Diana that was savvy, bang on, extremely intelligent in many ways, but in some ways she was a complete bit, I wouldn't say bimbo, but as she said, airhead. And she said that Harry inherited that and William was the sensible one. Well, she was certainly bang on the money there, wasn't she? So there's been headlines, gross insult to William and Charles. You see, no one knows who he is, quite obviously, trying to charge with not taking care of Her Majesty. People are assuming that he's pointing the finger at William and Charles. It could, and perhaps more likely, might involve the Queen's private secretary, her courtiers, the other people around her, Angela Kelly. And you've got to understand, my dears, that I have had my own concerns that I have told you about Her Majesty. Everything from the strange graphics of her meetings with ambassadors, where people have been allowed to film Her Majesty complaining about her mobility issues, where they haven't taken footage from flattering angles as they used to in the old days. There was an amateur sense to the production values, which never happened in the past. That's one thing. There are certain revelations in the updated version of Angela Kelly's book, which I said yesterday I don't actually like. And I don't believe that Her Majesty would have approved that kind of stuff coming out a few years ago. You know, I do understand that Angela is a close confidant of the Queen, highly trusted. But maybe people around the Queen are pushing the envelope where they couldn't a few years ago. Maybe. These are all just questions in the air, questions going around my brain. So my point isn't that Harry doesn't have the right to look out for Granny, because he does, and he should, and that is a good thing. But just like the revelations on Oprah Winfrey, there is a time and a place. There is a time for privacy. There is a time when you don't share these concerns with the entire world. That is not royal. And you know that by doing this, Harry, you're damaging Charles and William, because you know that you're just throwing questions out there for the world. You just put questions out there and enjoy putting these little bombs, you know, just like the allegations of racism, where you never came out and said who it was, didn't, you know, so the finger of suspicions on everybody, the entire family, and monarchy going back in history. It stinks and it boils my fucking piss. There is no way that Prince Harry should be appearing on that balcony. Do you hear me? For the Jubilee. No way. He is a danger. He doesn't deserve to be around them. In private, yeah, they can do what they want, but not as a public member of the royal family. His service he can go and do with wifey all over the place. And I'm sure some of it will do great things, but royal service is different. Royal service serves the nation's interests as well as his own personal vendettas and interests and petty little squabbles within the family. That is national service. Royal service. It's the Queen's birthday tomorrow. You know, within 24 hours of this interview emerging. The Queen's birthday. And all the headlines are going to be about Harry's concerns, about her safety. I ask you. And wouldn't it be easier for the rest of the family to devote more time to the Queen if you and Meghan hadn't upped and left because of your big tantrum, Harry? You know, Charles and Camilla have got their work cut out. Not only doing his duty as the Prince of Wales with his consort, but now basically being Prince Regent in everything but name. Doing all of Her Majesty's work as well as his own. All of her engagements as well as his own. Incredibly busy diary. And William and Catherine, all the rest of the existing royals, whether it be Anne, the Wessexes, all of them scurrying along to pick up the patronages that you left behind. All the work that you were supposed to take on, doing your duty as the spare and the spare's wife, you know? That was your duty that you shirked because you wanted to be half in, half out. No, it doesn't work that way. You're either in or out. Since time memorial, that's how it's been, dear. You can't reinvent the rules for you. The whole thing beggars belief, absolutely beggars belief. You know, and it makes you think, did Harry make sure that he had that moment with the Queen, having tea with Meghan? Did he make sure that that happened just so that he could discuss things with her that he didn't want to risk discussing over the phone or on Zoom or anywhere where it might be recorded, where he could convince the Queen, you know, oh, aren't you going to invite us to the Jubilee, Granny? You know, we can't wait to see you there. Put her into a corner so that she has to say, oh yes, of course, you're welcome. And then they put out the message to the press that the Queen's invited them. You know, I'm not saying this is true. It could be very, very unlikely, but it puts questions in the mind, doesn't it? Of who's leading who here. I'm not privy to everything that goes on behind the scenes. I don't know if Prince Charles is behaving immaculately or if there should be concerns about his relationship to Her Majesty. He seems like a devoted, loving son to me. I don't know. I'm sure they clashed on some things, and it seems that William and Charles are more in tune with each other these days, and Her Majesty's got her own thoughts and ideas and her way of doing things. I don't know. But when he talks about worrying about the Queen, He and his wife are the only members of the family that dragged her legacy and the achievements of the monarchy in the Commonwealth in public and damaged that, the reputation of the nation. They are the only two, no matter how much he cares for her, no matter how much he thinks he's protecting her, looking out for her from the rest of the family. They did the damage that is ongoing right now and might someday lead to the fall of the monarchy. It's that dramatic. You did it, Harry. Stop passing the blame on to everybody else but you. And this interview, by the way, was on NBC, which, just out of interest, is the number one competitor of CBS, which is the home of Oprah, Gayle, James Corden, all their pals, Ellen. So that's quite interesting, isn't it? I wonder what they will think of him giving the scoop. I might be reading too much into that, but I just found that quite interesting. And as I say, it's the way that he casually drops these little truth bombs, as they call them, casually drops them into the conversation with scant regard for the people of this kingdom. People of this kingdom who have cherished the dignity of the royal family for generations. It's a slap in the face for us. It's a slap in the face for all who support the Queen and the monarchy and everything the royal family do. Not for anyone else, just for us. A slap in the face for us, which is entirely unnecessary. So thoughtless. You shouldn't leave the audience guessing. If you're going to throw in an aside like that, Harry, then you should say, oh, and of course I'm not talking about my father or my brother or my family relations. Make the distinction if it's the family or the courtiers, because he could be talking about Sir Edward Young, the Queen's private secretary, who's not universally popular with everybody. Many think of him as rather weak, especially following on from his predecessor, Lord Guyt, who was strong, who would let the Queen know what she needed to know. Sir Edward's got a reputation for being a little reticent in telling Her Majesty what she needs to know, whereas Lord Guyt back in the day warned of what was coming up with Andrew, warned of what Sussex behaviour might look like. But the whispers are, unfortunately, that it was Charles and Andrew who wanted him out because they thought he was going to be too much trouble, and they brought in this weaker Sir Edward. Lord Guyt was removed for having his strong opinions, but Charles and Andrew might be regretting getting rid of him now, if those rumours are true, because I'm sure the Queen can make up her own mind. But the current private secretary, Sir Edward, is said to lack the backbone it takes to stand up to the Queen on strong issues when strong advice is needed for her own interests. And the whispers are that there's no discipline in his camp. No discipline. Things leak all the time, whereas they didn't in the time of Lord Guyt. This is the segment where what I'm going to say is controversial, and I might feel differently tomorrow, This has given me the hump, what Harold's come out with today. So I might feel differently when I make up tomorrow. Depends on what other things Harry comes out with in this interview, of course. But I've been thinking about Prince Charles, his future, how unfair the current situation is on him, because we are now in an era where monarchs live until they're 100 years old. This isn't the way that things were in times gone past. People died a lot younger. Kings died in battle with illnesses, but we're in an era now, which is wonderful, with the advances of science, technology, this kind of thing, medicine, all of that. We're in a situation now where all of our kings and queens going forward, save tragedies or unwanted illnesses, very bad ones, save that, where they're all going to be in their 80s or 90s going forward. Let's assume, and please don't misunderstand me, I'm not wishing death upon Her Majesty whatsoever. I wish she could go on forever. But let's assume she goes on to the same age as her mother, 101 I think it was. So if that happens and Prince Charles becomes king at that time, he'll be 79, 80 years old. His consort, Queen Camilla, if she's still alive, will be 82, 83. It's not guaranteed for everyone. Some people die when they're 2 months old. Some people die in their 20s, 30s. It's not unheard of. So the Queen might outlive them, which I know some people might think is best, because then William will take the crown. But, it looks like, and then Charles could go on to 101. So William will be in his 70s, 80s. So we are in this strange new era where kings and queens are going to be in their dotage for most of their time. So the role of Prince of Wales or Princess of Wales or whoever's under the Queen, they're going to be the ones expending all their energy, as Prince Charles has done throughout his whole life as Prince of Wales, doing their duty, their service responsibility, but without the ability to take the reins and make decisions and be a king, or a queen. In this permanent state of limbo, this permanent state of waiting. And I understand that that's the way it is, that's the way it works until the reigning sovereign expires. You wait your turn. And nobody really wants that responsibility anyway. But I do really feel sorry for Prince Charles. I have a lot of sympathy for him because he can't put his stamp on his work. He can't make decisions. If he and William feel a certain way about Harry, which conflicts with the Queen, who might be feeling more magnanimous, or maybe not have the energy to think about some of the dramas, she gets to make the decision of who appears there on the balcony. She gets to, invite them, this, that, and the fourth, which might concern Charles and William. They might not be in agreement with her, and it might make things awkward for Charles's reign coming up. And these are all such sticky questions. There's no easy solution to them. But the way I feel today, and I'm surprised myself that I'm saying this, we have to understand that Charles at the moment, and it has been whispered in the press, is in all but name a regent now. He's Prince Regent. Which means that he's doing all the work on behalf of the Queen, but without the sovereignty that comes with the official title of Prince Regent. Now, a regent, for those that don't know, in the Regency Act of 1937, there's provision for the establishment of a regency on account of the absolute incapacity of the monarch to discharge the royal functions. Now, they mention in this Regency Act incapacity of the mind and body, or either or. Obviously, there's no incapacity with her mind, although I would argue, looking on, that the mind isn't what it was. I wouldn't say it's failing at all. She hasn't lost her marbles, anything like that. I'm not suggesting that. But is it able to fulfill all of her? Is she able to have the vision that she needs to preserve the monarchy? Surely one of the functions of reigning as monarch should be to preserve that institution. I know it's all open to interpretation, but certainly the physical frailties mean that she has an incapacity. You can't say that she's got the physical capacity to perform her royal functions. People say she still continues with light duties, but those in the know are saying very, very light duties. Doing as much as she possibly can, but not being able to get involved with the same energy and dynamism as she once did. I'm coming round to the way of thinking that once the Platinum Jubilee is done, maybe a line should be drawn. Maybe, just maybe, Prince Charles should be named Prince Regent to give him the powers that he needs for this transitional period to make decisions and style the future monarchy in his way, which might be for better or worse, who knows. But one thing is for sure, at the moment it feels like a clashing between households, between camps, between Clarence House, Buckingham Palace. It's one step forward, 5 steps back. I will say, however, I don't believe that Her Majesty would ever really be up for this. The way she sees it, I'm sure, is that she will be queen without a regent until either her dying day or until she truly and utterly loses her mind. But, I'm just thinking of I don't want this. I would like to see Her Majesty as queen without a regent until her dying day. Of course I would. What I'm trying to say is, are we going to have another 5 years of this? Another 7, 8 years of this? It's not impossible, for Her Majesty to go on till 103, 104 years old. It's not. Just because she's in pain, she's still in good health in many other ways. And people live a long, long time. She's had the best of everything to keep her going all these years, and she'll continue to. So really, I'm just throwing the question out there to myself and also to you, where you think the line should be drawn, because a 70-year jubilee seems like it could be an opportune moment to say, look, yes, I'm still queen, I'm not abdicating, so I still hold the title of Queen, but it's time, as I approach 100 years old, to hand over my duties fully, because I've already handed them over. You know, she's already handed them over to Charles. He's doing it all, really, apart from the frustrations of not being able to take truly executive decisions. And I could be utterly wrong here, but I sense and I get the feeling that there is very much a misalignment between how the Queen might want to deal with the Harkle issue and how Charles, and perhaps William as well, might want to deal with the issues. And perhaps Her Majesty doesn't quite represent the harm that the Harkles represent. Perhaps. But maybe she does know best. Maybe she does have the wisdom to know best. This is why it's so difficult for me to ascertain. I enjoy hearing your opinion on it. I might feel differently tomorrow. Sheesh capiche. I read as well in the press, Netflix shares are crashing. Have you seen this? The Harkles mates at Netflix. Subscribers falling for the first time in a decade, hundreds of thousands, and of course they had to let go of all their Russian subscribers as well. Forecasts and predictions financially are absolutely dire. They're turning to cheaper models of the subscription versions that they're going to have adverts attached to them, so money seems to be hemorrhaging out of the Netflix project at the moment, the project as a whole. So they really need their bang for a buck if they're going to be providing the Harkles with all that longer, if they haven't done so already, won't they? But if they're losing subscribers, not many people are going to be watching. Of course, we all know what they will be watching. The Crown! Because that obviously generates a lot of money, because it's the royal family and everyone's interested in them, because they're brilliant, basically. I actually believe that he needs to be rebuffed by Her Majesty. And, I don't want her cajoled into it. I don't want her, people have suggested that Her Majesty might be cajoled into certain things, like the announcement where she gave Camilla her blessing for being Queen in the future. I don't think that she's weak enough or frail enough to put her name to those kind of announcements if she didn't actually want them. When I see footage of Her Majesty in conversation now, she still seems the full ticket. But, I think I have a particular understanding of what's going on with Her Majesty, like many of you, and I know I've spoken about this before, but I have a great auntie living with my parents at the moment. I mean, she has her own wing, but she has them there by her side. She's in her extreme dotage. She's at more or less the same stage as Her Majesty. She's become very, very frail. It increases every month. It's a real concern. And the mind, she's still absolutely her. She knows who we all are. Dreading the day that she looks at me and doesn't recognise me. But she still knows all that. You can still have wonderful conversations with her. But she sort of has this goldfish memory, where she'll tell you the same thing 7 times in an hour. And the thing is, she knows. I mean, she tells you when she sees you. She says she's becoming very forgetful. And then 5 minutes later, she'll tell you, oh, did you know that I'm becoming quite forgetful? It's one of those. We all have to go through it with elderly relatives, don't you? And it's absolutely heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking. But you wouldn't know that if you saw her in the shops. She looks like a sprightly young thing. She's so well preserved, it shocks everybody. How old she is. She's really great. But because we know Auntie so well, we know that things aren't quite what they were. She can't make decisions in certain ways. And, my parents have had to employ a solicitor to write up power of attorney for them. And obviously they did it with my great aunt's full knowledge and her permission and her blessing. But these are very upsetting conversations to have, very necessary, because no one knows the point at which the mind is gonna go and decisions can't be made. And if you haven't made preparations for that in advance, then it can lead to all kinds of awful, awful problems. Once the mind's gone, then things in some ways are simpler because it's evident. But it's this period of not quite knowing how responsible they can be for their decisions and how fit the mind is in its fullness that makes things so precarious. It's very upsetting for all involved, especially, of course, those in Her Majesty's position, those in my great auntie's position. And, it will affect most of us at some point in our life. So I have no truck with Harry for wanting to protect his granny and for wanting to know what's going on. Of course I don't. But as I said, you don't take this out into the public. You don't just drop these little bombs into conversation, as you're obviously going to keep doing throughout the Jubilee if you're involved in that. When your memoir comes out, you know, your poison pen, all this. And you'll do it in the same way. You'll do it in the same way, acting like the innocent Rose, cheeky chappy Harry, casual little asides, but being the poisonous serpent underneath the innocent flower. That is the way that you and your wife operate. It's this passive aggression. Passive aggression. You can't just come out with it. And if you do come out with it, you should be coming out with it in private anyway and keeping it under wraps, because it's so ungracious. It's so undignified. And this is why, in the UK today anyway, most of the headlines aren't impressed with Harry. He's media savvy and media trained enough to know that this kind of approach, dropping in little asides this way, is poisonous, and he knows it's going to grab headlines, you know. I needed to get that out of my system, dear, so forgive my passion, my fervour. You know me by now. I just come to you how I'm feeling on the day. Sometimes that's relaxed and tranquil. Sometimes I've got an itch that needs scratching. You know what I mean? New ring arrived for me today, and I'd say it's one of my favourites. Isn't it absolutely divine? Gorgeous, gorgeous shade of greeny blue there. So that cheered me up. Thanks for watching. Leave me a nice big juicy one below. A comment, that is. A nice big juicy comment. And thanks to those of you who have sent me a little tip for the tip jar. It's most kind of you. I'm actually going to go now and treat myself to a cup of coffee. Thank you very much. A nice latte, and I'm going to have something sweet with it as well to spoil myself. I think I'll have... It's going to have to be my favourite, isn't it? Pain au chocolat. Dunk it in that latte and forget about the troubles of the world for 5 minutes. Glorious, eh? Just glorious. Stay royal, my fruits, if you can. I know it's bloody difficult sometimes, especially on days like today when you have to deal with this muck. But try to stay royal and gracious. Channel your inner sovereignty and your royal spirit, and you'll always be a princess. My dear, or a queen, or a king. Lots of love.